secondary deck, and Jarla has moved on to the tertiary deck. Hunterace adds in 2 copies, a Hench Clan Burglar, a Harrison Jones, a Heist Baron Togwaggle, and a Chef Nomi. He cuts out 2 copies of Backstab, a Bloodsail Corsair, a Sap, and an SI7 agent. On Jarla's side, Derek, what the heck?
Yeah, this may look like a very weird selection of cards he's put in. He loses, he takes out from the deck Double Banker. Great, those aren't doing anything. Iron Beak Owl, Omega Devastator, and Elysiana. Nothing too devastating. But the added cards, a Spellzerker, an Unseen Saboteur, a Deathwing, in addition to 2 Shield Slams, which, so far as I can tell...
Regular slams, rather.
Sorry, slams. Yeah, not Shield Slams.
I wish it was called regular slam.
Regular slam. But I think pretty much the Spellzerker and the Deathwing in particular are to deal with Chef Nomi.
So talk about the Spellzerker there real quick. I mean, it looks weird if you don't know what's going on here, which I fortunately do, but it's a strange interaction where I had to watch it the first time.
Yeah, you have to know exactly what it's being put in the deck for. This is not just being played as a 2-mana 2/3. I mean, who knows, maybe Jarla thinks he can get there and not have to worry about the Chef Nomi, but the point of the card in the deck is you wait until you have 10 mana, your opponent plays Chef Nomi for a board full of 6/6 minions. Then you go Spellzerker and Warpath 4 times, damages the Spellzerker, upgrading one of them by 2 spell damage, which basically means you can deal 6 damage to the whole board for 10 mana.
So it's a card dedicated specifically to counter one specific card as a 2-card combo with this one specific card.
It absolutely is.
Very strange, but also very effective.
Yes, I mean, it's strange, and it's also imperfect. Like, your hesitance to go to believe in this is very valid. As RDU was saying the other day, Warpath's a good card in this matchup. You want to just play it throughout the course of the game in order to survive. And so saving it right until the end of the game to deal with Chef Nomi is not always something that you have the liberty to do. But that's the reasoning behind it anyway.
The thing about it is, this is a weird saying, and I'm going to end up butchering this phrasing like I usually always do when I explain things. Spellzerker's not a bad card. However, in Warrior, it's a really bad card. Bad cards serve a purpose, and they often serve a very specific purpose. And that's part of the reason the cards are inherently weak cards, is when they serve their intended purpose, they're incredibly strong. It acts as a full board clear to a Chef Nomi, something that Brawl doesn't even technically do. It acts as an effective clear in a lot of situations. Your opponent's still left with a minion. The Spellzerker Warpath serves as a full clear to a full 6 health board all at once. It's crazy how effective that one card is because of a scenario like that.
It is, but like you said, most of the time, it's just bad.
Yeah.
You just don't want to be playing that at all, which is, a learning curve for a lot of budding deck builders in Hearthstone, which is you don't want to put in cards into your deck that are very rarely useful because you've run into it one time.
And honestly, I feel like this lesson applies mostly to control-style decks.
Interesting.
Every card in your deck needs to serve a specific purpose. And if you can't identify a reasonable purpose for it, and that reasonable purpose can be fringe case scenarios, but those fringe case scenarios have to be able to crop up, and they have to be devastating to you when they happen. If every card in your deck does not serve a purpose, think about what replaces it and serves a purpose.
Do you know, I think that applies to an aggressive deck like Rogue as well? Like, it's very streamlined. Everything is doing one thing, which is killing your opponent.
And that's kind of the gist I'm getting at, is, minions typically serve the same purpose. They all attack.
Yeah, fair enough.
For control decks, however, spells, they typically do very specific things.
I see your point. And it's a good one at that.
Miscreant, wonderfully checked by Militia Commander.
Yeah, one of the reasons why it's just so universally run in Warrior at the moment, in addition to just being a good card.
And Town Crier. I love Town Crier.
Hear ye.
Just 1-mana 1/2s, I like them. Like Firefly, I love that card.
I love Firefly.
Firefly's insane right now. Think about it in Rogue.
It was good in Rogue before, but it wasn't. It was cut. It was cut in Miracle Rogue before.
Well, mind you, they now have Evil Miscreant.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, good point. It's close. I mean, people are playing Wisp to be able to play the Miscreant comboed on turn 3.
To my point, exactly.
Fair enough.
Hunterace this game, both Evil Miscreants available, and so a much different story.
Blood and plunder.
And as we can see, he has much more liberty to play the minion removal plan. He's very happy, I think, to just keep chipping away the board and make sure he's getting in a little bit of damage every single turn, trying to keep his opponent a reasonable life total. But he knows that if he doesn't get the damage through, that is far from the game being over. He can still rely on Togwaggle, Heist Baron Togwaggle, and the Chef Nomi as well.
I had the liberty at the Grandmasters Summit, as the players were being introduced to everything with the format, to have Hunterace and Kalento stand over my shoulder and absolutely berate my rogue play. As instead of fighting for board against Warrior, I went face.
Right.
And Kalento looks at my game and he shakes his head and he says, "You have to get board control." Excuse me, he goes, "You have to get the board control." And I ignored him and I lost by like 2 damage because of it. And he identified the sequence where I just would have gotten that 2 damage instead by simply fighting for board. And I was like, Kalento, you damned genius.
I imagine that being somewhat upsetting, but at the same time, my Pavel story is far superior. In China, he took my iPad while I was playing Hearthstone, and I kid you not, queued up a game and instantly conceded 7 times and burst out laughing after every single one. He just never got tired of that joke. And I let him do it every time. I was always like, okay, this time he's going to boost me up a rank. Just conceded every time.
Speak to me.
Hunterace shakes his head. I think it's by the way that this Acolyte is contesting the board. It's just quite weird looking, but I am a little bit curious about it. I mean, Hunterace's hand feels quite strong at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, this is interestingly not even due necessarily to the change in its deck. It's just drawing Miscreant. He just drew the value cards this game, whereas last game, it was all 0 mana spells. He just dumped his hand instantly. Which is good. You don't want to be drawing those power cards quite yet. You want to save them for later on for a little bit of extra punch and just do the classic rogue stuff first.
Attrition. Rogue has become, I think, quite a good attrition deck when it draws the right cards, but it's still got that rogue feeling to it. Like, wait, back in 2013, I will never forget that feeling of like 10 games in a row just not being able to find gadgets in Auctioneer and going, I'm really going to just need gadgets in Auctioneer every single time.
Yep. And, it feels similar to that even now. Like you said, it just comes in different ways. It's you're looking for Myra's, Miscreant, and the raiding party instead of your Auctioneer.
Well, we're seeing the downside of numerous tech choices dedicated for the endgame now. They clutter your hand sometimes.
I will never get over this. I always just think when I'm building a deck, 1 or 2 tech cards to beat the control decks, why not throw them in? You still always beat aggro. It's staggering the difference that it makes.
Quite a good Omega Assembly here.
Yep. It's also quite a good Omega Devastator.
I think it's a better Ziliax, though.
I agree.
Good talk. We'll
Talk
call
to
it
you
a
next
day.
game.
I do think that Jarla has the hand that can, bridge the gap to that later stage, though. It's innocuous, but Hunterace is not exactly pressing the issue at the moment.
Yeah. This is the benefit of Hunterace going for something like this. Is for the moment, Jarla doesn't need to do anything. He can just hero power every turn, remove minions with his weapons when he needs to, and still just be in a great spot.
I would love to see him hold on to this Ziliax here.
As would I.
Now, that being said, I can promise you that the thought of either a waggle pick or a shadow step happening on this is always one of those sites where you go, God, I should have killed that Miscreant.
Yes. If it was against Hunterace's primary deck, I would definitely agree with you. In this instance, if they're not shadow stepping Chef Nomi, I think you're pretty happy. Or Togwaggle, Icebarren Togwaggle as well. Those are like, obviously Miscreant with the shadow step is one of the most powerful things you can do in Hearthstone at the moment. But Nomi and Icebarren Togwaggle are just an entire different level.
It changes the landscape because Jarla knows those cards.
Exactly.
You want to encourage Hunterace actively to use those shadow steps.
You want to message him on Discord and say, go on.
Shadow step,
Shadow
I dare
step
you.
it.
Discover a copy of a minion in your opponent's deck. Ooh.
Is that ever good?
Well, so what I'm thinking about for Hunterace is, say that he would, let's just say, for instance, he were to discover Deathwing. What that means is at the end of the game, when he's going for the Chef Nomi nonsense, and his opponent uses Deathwing as the final blow, you have a Deathwing now as your final blow.
That's a really good point. Well, but then by that same metric, would you rather just have a minion in your opponent's deck or a druid minion? You can just discover any druid minion. I think I agree with him. I think on average, you're likely to get something that's just meat gift that you can play on board, just like an Ironbark Protector, something like that.
Yeah, I think with Hunterace, after watching him play all year long, it's very clear to me that Hunterace favors consistency and predictability in his game plan and flexibility in his game plan more than just giant payoff risks. He will take the risks when they are necessary, but when it's a close call, I have noticed that he tends to favor a call that builds to some sort of consistency. He sees a lot of different game plans and plays, I would say, quite conservatively in comparison to most players.
I would agree with you. I think consistency is the name of the game for Hunterace. The fact that he had such a strong year from being, second place at the first tour stop of the year and then winning the World Championships right at the end. Over the whole year, he was absolutely dominating, as opposed to, for example, Just Saying, who had the 1 or 2 month period where he basically didn't lose a game of Hearthstone. He was invincible for about 2 months. He literally was. I think he won like 35 series in a row, with one regame because of double bracket in the middle or something like that. He was basically unbeatable. But over the whole year, Hunterace was undeniably the stat.
Yeah, I mean, Zayn did have the real-life ice block pop at some point in terms of his Hearthstone matches, but it wears off when it gets back to your turn.
It just takes 2 months, apparently. And so here, obviously, on 7 mana, we enter the position where Heist Baron Togwaggle becomes a possibility. Doesn't have the obviously the Shadow Step yet, which if you're going all in on a Lackey and a Togwaggle deck, you sometimes want to be saving. Or I guess a lot of the time you'd be running a Togwaggle Scheme if you're going all in on a Togwaggle deck.
Yeah.
But I think when you have Nomi, again, you have the liberty to just throw it down for a strong deck.
Yeah, Wondrous One, I think, has proven that it's typically one of the strongest ones that you get from this. Very early on, everyone was jamming double legendary at the same time. It was very flashy, the decks were unrefined, and they weren't capable of handling that much tempo at one time. Since then, Wondrous One has become the linchpin, I would say, of Heist Baron Togwaggle, and with a Chef Nomi deck, it absolutely makes sense that you're going for Wondrous One here.
I fully agree. I would have been very surprised to see anything else, especially against Warrior. I think a deck that runs limited removal, you can just fairly happily throw down a huge tempo swing with the double legendary, hope to hit one of the bigger ones. But when they have Brawl, if you throw that down, looking at the rest of his hand, there wasn't much draw. It would probably just peter out over the time. So I think Wondrous Wand, definitely a great pick.
The thing about it now is Hunterace has been going for this chip away game plan where he's been pacing himself, really taking his time, and now Dr. Boom has hit the board, which changes the landscape of how efficiently you can just chip away at life total.
Oh, drastically.
How does that change the game plan for Hunterace at this point?
Oh, well, I mean, I think it means he has to shift from traditional rogue game plan, or this, I should say, standard tempo rogue game plan, to the techs in his deck. He is playing the secondary cards of his secondary deck now. He's pretty much all in on doing something disgusting with Togwaggle or Chef Nomi, because even though he is getting in this chip damage very nicely indeed, I think that's about to stop.
So we're going to start seeing the pedal to the metal.
Yeah, he's just going to want to turbo through his deck, try and find Myras, try and go for the Nomi stuff. But obviously in the meantime, getting your opponent down to a lower health total, you're not going to pass that up at all. He's kind of got both bases, I think, covered very beautifully here, where he's got the damage in the early game that he's still chipping away at, and he's still got the backup of Chef Nomi, as well as all the value from cards like Hench Clan Burglar.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
Wow, these are some good turns for Jarla, too. Both players just having such good hands for what their deck's trying to produce right now. Like, I actually don't know who's favored from this position.
Yeah, so what are we looking at here? If we see, we can fit Hero Power, Dynamatic, and Weapons Project for Jarla all in the same turn.
Yeah, I think you'd want to isolate a minion to return that is not strong.
I agree.
And so what I look at there is obviously the Master Swordsmith at that point.
I agree.
That's not a guarantee. And so what's the best course of action for Jarla?
Oh, I love that fuse thing.
Also, well, can you make that a guarantee? You kind of can. If you go Hero Power and run them all into the 3/3, Dynamatic and kill off the life ring.
Yeah, I mean, the ideal situation is that,
well, this works out good.
You kill everything, which is, I guess, is just what's happening.
Yeah. Yep, this is fine. I'm very happy.
Killing your opponent's entire board, destroying their Waggle Pit, and developing 4 attack of your own is fine? Okay, noted.
I have high standards of these players. I expect the best.
Ooh.
That's interesting. It's not perfectly timed because he's already found, obviously, the Togwaggle, the Lackey. Oh, sorry, the Miscreant already. But maybe he can pick up something with a wave of his wand to go with this Shark.
Yeah, not a lot of battle cries and combos, I think, that significantly matter at this point. Zero cost Leroy definitely matters, though.
And a 0 cost Dread Corsair. It's not every day you see that. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, if I don't play Hearthstone for an entire day, I definitely don't see 0 cost Red Corsair. I guess unless I don't watch any Hearthstone that day either.
When was
Yeah,
the
that
last
doesn't
time
happen.
you neither played nor watched Hearthstone for a day?
It has not happened in a long time.
But now, interestingly, while we are having a good old bit of banter here, Hunterace picking up the 0 mana Leroy is actually very important because it gives him the ability to shift over from the Nomi plan to the Leroy Jenkins Shadow Step plan if he wants to. Because being able to go 0 mana Leroy, step it back, 3 mana Leroy, that's 18 burst for 6 mana. That's insane.
Yeah, he's got a lot of heat coming. So for Jarla, the order of operations here, I think, depends on what cost of minions are highest impact and how that affects the rest of your hand. You don't necessarily just rip Omega Devastator here first. I'm sorry, Omega Assembly first, because you can get that at any point.
Okay.
But with a 5 and a 5 in hand, it does appear to me this is your first course of action. Although,
Oh, what? So you want to go Dynamatic Ziliax? Or-
well, I want to figure. I pretty much always want to use this hero power that discovers a mech
I
every
agree.
single time.
Yeah.
And since he doesn't have any cheaper mechs in hand or cheaper utility in hand other than Omega Assembly,
This would be a
the
good
order here I
time
think
for
is
a
always Omega
master
Assembly
plan.
first. It's just a,
Oh,
it's
okay.
a situation to look at where I
thought
found my
you were
most
saying the other way
complicated
around.
turns are when I have some clunky mechs that are all good, and I hit this hero power where I really want to discover. And Scrap Hound is the perfect one.
You just play it with Ziliax on this turn.
Not necessarily this turn, but it gives you access to that. And that is super important.
I wouldn't hate it on this turn. Right?
I don't hate it on this turn either. This is kind of what I was looking at, though, because Security Rover is a tough one to use. You utilize your mana properly. You're safe from what Hunterace is going to do.
Okay. I did find this surprising, I have to be honest, because I was expecting one of the more power plays. But like you said, the other ones are always good, right? Ziliax will never be bad in this matchup.
It's pretty tough. And the Scrap Hound Ziliax can encourage Hunterace to take an aggressive stance and then surprise him with the amount that you can heal from it. And so I think that is a piece of information that Jarla needs to have concealed for a bit. Scheme!
Hunterace's expression there is exactly right. Look at these options. Togwaggle Scheme and Shadow Step are both premium spells to be finding here.
Scheme is...
So Scheme with Nomi is weird.
It's very weird. It is specifically only good in slow controlling matchups
Yes.
where your opponent does not pressure you. They
Right.
fight you on an attrition basis only. It's hard to include in your main deck because of that. But now Hunterace has discovered it in a matchup where Jarla's game plan is to attrition him out.
Obviously, the point is, if you play Nomi and then shuffle them into your deck, well, you would draw a lot of Nomi. They don't activate until you've drawn all of them. So you only want to be shuffling 1, maybe 2 into your deck. But he's going with it anyway. Maybe he doesn't even go with the Chef Nomis. He just shuffles in Leroys. He could shuffle in more Leroys to his deck.
He's just on the verge of...
He's just killing.
Yeah. He's on the verge of just being able to start ending the game. I mean, 0 cost Leroy, 0 cost Eviscerate, and Sinister Strike in hand. 13 burst for 1 single mana.
Eat your heart out, Pyroblast. This is getting exciting. Okay, this is really, really exciting. So that makes it more interesting, though, that he did not pick the Shadow Step, right? Because if he did, we could have seen 4 Leroys in a turn with the 3 Shadow Steps in his deck for 9 mana, right? Because I believe he's got 2 steps left in the deck.
Yes.
So that would have been...
But he's got so much gas.
But that's so much burst with the Eviscerate and the... That's 31 damage, I think, with the Eviscerate and the Sinister Strike as well.
that's really where my question comes in. Is it the security that you get from Togwaggle Scheme, or do you go for the Throat at that point? And I think that the security of Togwaggle Scheme is superior, and I also just think it's Hunterace's style. Like, does he need that much to win? Probably not. And so why not take a backup plan?
Okay.
Oh, I love that.
I'm not
fuse
convinced.
thing.
I definitely see your point of view. And the other thing is that picking another Shadow Step might just be redundant. Yes, it's flashy to do 31 damage in a turn, but I imagine that 25 damage in a turn would be just as good with only the 2 Shadow Steps. As, for the most part here, Jarla's turns are just going to be how to most efficiently remove everything every turn, because whether or not he can remove every turn is not even a question. He can kill everything every turn forever, until the Nomis start coming down.
And I feel like for Jarla, a lot of this game plan now comes down to how does he start closing the window. I think he's starting to recognize that it looks like he's going to fall behind. Innervate's interesting.
Innervate's very interesting. Shadow Madness also...
Lay on Hands is also interesting as well because it takes away the need for Myras a lot of times.
Okay.
But the Myras is just more mana efficient than the Lay on Hands.
Yeah.
Hunterace doesn't need life total.
I think, like, you don't have to play... You don't even have to play Myras at all this game, full stop. You can just carry on drawing cards naturally. I don't think the Lay on Hands is where you want to go because you have so much stuff to spend your mana on.
You also just want time for the scheme to build.
It does activate Lucent Bark, however.
Oh.
Which is something to consider. I still think that's
I
a
would have
bit
taken
too
the Lay on
French.
Hands.
I know
I
you
would
would
have
have
taken
done. I know you would have done.
That's way too cool. I love Druid, and Lucent Bark is funny. It's a bad card, but when it works, it works.
Oh. Hunterace chips the 2 here instead of trading off the Dynamatic, and this spells out his game plan pretty easily, right?
Is crazy to me.
Really? Because of a discovered Ziliax?
No, it just feels weird. Like you have sacrificed your Hench Clan Burglar.
Wait, it's setting out his game plan very clearly, right?
Yes, and it also, I guess it sacrifices it either way because of the laser hero power.
Your thing dies always. All you're doing here is taking 3 damage to face. There is a 0% chance that your Burglar
in play is really what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I think he is saying, I don't really mind about that.
Okay.
I'm not saying he's necessarily correct, but that's clearly what he's indicating, right? It's much more valuable to him to get the damage through to face.
That's where my curiosity is, though. I feel like that does matter.
I mean, it does matter. It makes a difference to the texture of the game, but I think it's more valuable to him to get the damage through to face when his hand is all this damage. He's just got, what is that, 14, 16 burst already just from hand.
Yep, I think Jarla correctly recognizes he needs to do this.
It's time. That was a scaring move. And that is actually another downside of Hunterace's play of pushing the 2 face there, is it was an obvious play. That was clearly saying my hand is all damage, or for the most part damage, and Jarla is capitalizing on that beautifully. Really good recognition.
Yeah, recall him hanging on to the Vicious Scalehide and Ziliax. Just because it was a great turn, he didn't use it. Yeah. He tried to get more information and bait Hunterace into making a weaker play, and that's exactly what happened.
And now I guess Hunterace has to eviscerate this Scrap Hound, because if he hits into it with the weapon, that's, what, 10 health that is effectively gained from the Scrap Hound and the Ziliax.
Yeah, you don't want him to have 10 health.
Yeah. I fully agree.
I'm telling you now, if that Lucent Bark Lay on Hands was there, by golly.
Wrong. You are simply wrong, my friend.
No, I think you're wrong. Yeah, I said it.
Well, that's your opinion. Your wrong opinion.
Opinions presented as fact.
So many
Because they are.
options.
You do realize there are some people watching now who are not aware of the spectacle that is That's Admirable, who may really be thinking, you think that Lucent Bark into Lay on Hands was just a premium Hearthstone play.
I don't necessarily think that it wasn't.
Hot dog.
This guy's toast.
Yeah, this seems like a pretty much the play I was looking at. I was thinking maybe he would have gone with Waggle Pick to hit face and leave up the 1/1. This does seem a little bit inconsistent with what he went for last time, like completely clearing the board this time, whereas he could have got the Waggle Pick damage to face instead of playing the Harrison.
Well, he went for a move, and that move got checked, and so he has to shift game plans.
Yeah.
That's a really big nod to what we were
point.
talking about in the first series, where we were commending Silverknight for simply following through on the game plan. Until he has a very real reason to do something otherwise, he does not.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Hunterace did here. He has a very real reason to shift away from the all-in burst damage game plan.
He does indeed. So, actually, by saving the Myra's Unstable Element until he naturally draws his whole deck, does he go Nomi, Togwaggle scheme, then Myra's to draw all the Nomis?
No way.
That's got to be the plan,
That's super
right?
next level.
I mean, he probably dies before that happens.
But maybe not.
Maybe he doesn't. because then that's just, you know, if he does that,
Further
he
evidence
doesn't
for the
die.
lay on hands. You toggle waggle scheme, use the lay on hands to empty the deck, restore the health, and not have to use the Myras. Genius play.
It's just, it's so dumb, but I'm still starting to see your point and agree with you.
Because now the hand for Hunterace is becoming quite dead, and the fact that he is sunken below the camera as he leans into focus.
So what are we looking at? If he were to play Myras on this turn, he would burn 2 cards. Unless he played something else.
Not only that, he's taken 7 damage.
Yes, yeah. But so I'm looking at, sorry, because of the fact that he's taking so much damage, does he have to play Myras now just to go for a no-me play next turn?
I don't think the Lucid Bark is enough. Like, you cannot swing the board at all with Lucid Bark unless the taunt is successful in blocking the board. So I think
He's going for it now. The pressure's there.
I was just about to say,
I think you have to do this too.
you're just going to have to do it.
Pray that no-me is not the last card in his deck. There it is, with a Shadow Step. 1 card being overdrawn there. Was that the second Shadow Step, or has he already played it? So
That was the second Shadow Step, I
I
believe.
think it was.
So, prep,
But either way,
eviscerate, cut
this
the
is what he
damage.
has to work with.
You cut as much damage as possible.
Yep.
If you're in Hunterace's position here.
He's very, very unhappy.
Whoa. So he's moving in. He says Nomi is not enough to generate the tempo and win from this position.
So how much damage does he have? He has Leroy for 6, 10 with the Waggle Pick, 16, 22. He has exactly 22.
And Jarla can't gain HP!
He has lethal!
Whoa! I'm going to count again because I don't know if...
Leroy is 0 mana.
He's got 3 Leroys to play next turn.
18. The Waggle Pick as well.
Oh my god.
Exact lethal! That is staggering. He's actually just a god.
We have not seen a triple Leroy turn in a long time. The card used to be 4 mana,
Yep.
and it was common. It now is 5
This would
mana,
be a
and it's
good
very
time for
difficult to do.
I love that.
Oh, wow.
I am in shock.
We just missed that. That's crazy.
And he set it up perfectly.
Unbelievable setup here for Hunterace.
And this was a bold move here from him. He completely gave up on the Nomi plan because he was just taking too much damage. He realized that plan was just not going to get there, and he goes with the Leroy Lethal. Unbelievable play to level this series up.
Wow. It's situations like that